I've been thinking a lot about the idea of being brave for each other lately. And a lot of this has come into play for me as I've been reading about the Epstein file situation and how many people knew what was going on at that Epstein Island and how many adults were aware that children were being horribly abused, but then did not do anything to stand up for these children. So we're finding out, there were just an enormous number of people involved in the abuse, but then there were even more people who maybe did not participate themselves in the abuse, but what they did do was turn a blind eye to it, which really allowed this abuse to go on and on and on. And so I think I've been struck by the sheer lack of bravery, by the lack of integrity, by the lack of care for their fellow human beings that so many people displayed in the midst of this whole Epstein world.
And the fact that these children were children, they are the most vulnerable group of society that adults are expected to look over. And the fact that these kids were left to just seek help from themselves and nobody had them in mind and trying to protect them in any way, it's really quite disgusting and bleak that humans were able to treat other humans that way.
It really is. And one of the pieces too that just adds to the disgusting nature of this is these people who were involved in this. We're talking about wealthy individuals or people with influence or people with power.
Yeah.
So of all people to, have some bravery about how try to care for others in this world, have some bravery about seeing something that's wrong, and so what can you do? They had a lot of power. They could have made this right, but person after person after person chose not to. It really is that saying that all it takes for evil to prevail is for other people to do nothing and stay silent, which is exactly what we saw. And so I think it's so understandable that so many people are outraged now about this Epstein class of individuals who partook in terrible abuse or who turned their blind eye to terrible abuse. And so it has left so many of us just astounded at the lack of humanity that can take place when people do not stand up for the vulnerable, like you were mentioning.
And it's so easy, I think, to think, oh, somebody else will stand up for it. I'm just gonna, keep walking and hope that gets sorted. Like you said, that's the way for darkness to persist. So yeah, it is so astounding, and it's almost this feeling of disbelief that humanity can be so cruel. And so I'm wondering if you have any kind of ideas on how to reckon these continued realization as things continue to unfold that such cruelty happened and that nobody was brave.
And so what we have in front of us is just the exact opposite example as well. So from the people in Minneapolis and the larger state of Minnesota who are protesting the immense evil and horrific ways that ICE is treating residents in their communities, what we have there in that example from Minnesota are people who are standing up when they are seeing abuse happen and when they are seeing people treated horribly and vulnerable people being, disregarded and taken advantage of and treated with such evilness. What these neighbors are doing is standing up for their fellow neighbors to say, we will not abide by this. We see this evil taking place and we are going to name it. We are going to stand up for those who are vulnerable. And, we are going to do what is in our power to call this out and to say we stand against it. So it really is, it's the direct opposite of what the whole Epstein Island situation is the people of Minnesota have shown us a way of this is how you enact bravery. So it really is two things in juxtaposition of how humans chose to be brave and stand up for each other versus a set of humans that were with more power and more money who chose to look away. It really is so astounding that these two things are in front of us now. It shows you the difference in holding on to your humanity or not.
There is such a solidarity throughout the United States and even beyond about standing up. These people who would not be directly impacted but feel that in order to hold on to their humanity, it is their right and their responsibility to speak up. There was just such a shirking of responsibility in what happened with the Epstein Islands. Thank goodness there is this example that is the complete opposite, like you said, of people doing the responsible thing as human beings to name inhumanity when we see it. And that does help us hold on to our humanity.
I think that's exactly right, because one of the things that happens is when we choose to look away from inhumane things that we see happening, in looking away, we are losing a bit of our own humanness. We humans truly are social creatures. And so it really is something about we are meant to be communal in nature. And so for early humans, when there's a wild animal out to attack us, somehow we work together to fight the wild animal back. And so then in modern times, if what we're seeing is inhumanity taking place, and this is, a danger that has come to be, but no one in the community is saying, I am going to stand up here. What we need is community to stand up to this and say, this is not to be. Well, then there goes some of our own humanity in that. So in essence, you lose a little bit of yourself each time you turn away from what surely deep inside to be wrong. And so, not only is the person who's being brutalized left to be isolated and there by themselves and to suffer this inhumanity, you become more inhuman yourself by not calling it out. And so it truly is just astounding. And I think it's the perfect example. What you see are people, now we're reading about people who really just don't even seem to have humanity. Of course, it seems like, yes, that is what has occurred.
I've heard that Minnesotans have even done more to try to take back some of that humanity and to fight against this evil that is happening. When these detained individuals are being released, sometimes they're being released in the dark and the cold with no clothes and no food, and they don't know where they are. Even in the release process, it's just a complete terrible treatment of these people. And so I've heard that Minnesotans are organizing to, when they know someone is going to be released, they are meeting that person where they are, and they're meeting them with clothes and food and support and comfort. So to almost try to bathe that person in and know that they are cared for and that there is humanity. And in those actions, that is a complete fighting back the terribleness. It doesn't undo the terrible treatment that person has faced, but it lets them know there is still humanity and care out in the world. It's in the communalness that we take back our humanity.
That feels so right, because somehow in showing the care for the person who has endured the suffering, that it brings the humanity back to the situation. It lets the person know they are not alone in this hard time, and it lets the rest of the community know, hey, we are still together. There are difficult things happening, but humanity remains, and love does overcome this evil that we are seeing. So there is a sense in that the community is saying, whatever the threat is, we will not let it overcome us, each other, our community. We are going to walk this together. And I think there's something so powerful and so deeply human about what comes out of that, that it just is extremely important. And I would say too, these are two very big examples of, ways that it has gone terribly wrong, and then ways that, it is people are doing good for each other. But even in small everyday lives, we can live this out if we are in line. And I don't know, recently there's a lot of people, who are kind of ugly toward wait staff, or shouting at people who are service people trying to run the cash registers, or trying to serve the food. And so recently we see all kind of examples of, just in everyday life, people abusing those who are in vulnerable positions, those who are trying to go about their daily job. And here's another person, maybe just acting terribly to them. In a lot of situations, you see people standing around. They may be filming it, and that may help later, but in the moment, it seems like not often do we see people saying, hey, this is not right, and you need not speak to her that way. Or I'm going to stand with her and not allow you to speak to her that way. So I think there are moments, even in our everyday lives, that we could all have a little more bravery and stand up and hold on to our humanity with our fellow people, in those who are undergoing very difficult moments, to say, you're not alone. We're human in this together, and we will stand against some injustice that is happening right now.
Yes, and I think when one individual starts to be brave or speaks up for the servicewoman who is being verbally abused, that then encourages other people to also be brave, and we can help each other be brave in these situations. Often it just takes that one. That could be something small or whatever. It just takes the one, and then the rest start to feel empowered and brave as well.
That's right. That's right. Bravery is contagious, because I think there are, oftentimes, are, like you said, there are people who would like to stand up and say this isn't right. So if just one person can be that first person to stand up, other people will also stand as well, because there is something, I think we want to be connected humans. So anything we can do for each other to help each other be brave when we see these bad things happening to others, I think it builds community. It helps the person going through the hard thing know they're not alone, and it helps the rest of us know that we have not lost our humanity. There is still good amongst us, and that good will prevail if we stand in it together.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for reminding me of the importance of bravery, even in the smaller things. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Please share in the comments if you have any examples from your life or that you've seen about people being brave and standing up for what they know to be right. My name is Michelle. That's my mom, Ashley. Thank you for joining us, and please like and subscribe, and we will connect again soon.